What's up, everybody? After a favorite-filled NFL Week 6, we're here to talk about all the games and NFL Week 7, giving you our picks and predictions for each and every game. Sliwa, let's get it going. Before we do, friendly reminder to like the video if you're enjoying it. Leave us a comment about who you're picking this week. And as always, subscribe to the channel to keep getting this content and ensure you don't miss a single beat that we post.
Yep, straight into it. Can't believe it's already into week 7.
Yeah.
We just have two byes this week with the Bears and the Cowboys sitting, so one extra game compared to weeks 5 and 6. And we're kicking it off with this Thursday night matchup with the 3-3 Broncos heading into New Orleans to kind of play the spiraling Saints. Started off really hot, now dropped four in a row. Broncos lost to the Chargers by 7 in their last game. Bo Nix take away his first couple career starts and actually looks like a pretty serviceable quarterback in the NFL. And the Saints lost Spencer Rattler's first career start against the Bucs in a game where the defense was just pretty non-existent. Carr's out for a month, so we should see Rattler in this one again. They are the favorites at home. Are you backing Rattler and the Saints to kind of turn this thing around, or do you like what you're seeing from the Broncos and Bo Nix early on?
I kind of like what I'm seeing from the Broncos here. You mentioned the Saints being favorites. Neutral site line is implying that the Broncos are a little bit better of a football team, or at least favored in this matchup on a neutral site. And I kind of agree. And it really goes to the points that I've always made in these videos is that I like the defense of the Broncos. We know that they're a top five defense in the league and one of the best coverage units in football here. You saw the Saints really have an inability to stop the Buccaneers from scoring points last week. Now, this Buccaneers offense is a far cry different than the Broncos and clearly much more firepower. But I think after facing a really tough defense against the Chargers here, you'll see Bo Nix and the Broncos play against obviously a much more favorable defense and have a little more firepower. Going to be a really close game. Going to be a low scoring game as its total implies. So I'm taking the defense here, especially when you have a backup quarterback from the Saints. And we'll see what Chris Olave's status is after he got knocked out with concussion. As we mentioned with Malik Neighbors, people don't just bounce back from concussions 1 week after. It's not a given they're going to play with all the heightened scrutiny around these head injuries. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play. And even if he does, this Broncos secondary is so elite and so scary that I think I like the Broncos here to win the game.
Yeah, I actually do too. The Saints defense is giving up the most yards to opposing offenses in the entire NFL. I was surprised to hear that stat in a defense that I thought was at least above average in New Orleans, but they've really fallen off the rails after their hot start. And we kind of talked about it, but they try to force feed Kamara, and you're not going to keep winning games like that, especially if you're down Olave. And Bo Nix, he's 3-1 in his last 4 games. He's got 5 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and 2 rushing touchdowns. So
Wow.
I mean, I'll side with that in his defense over Rattler and this Saints offense pretty much
Mhm.
every week.
Yeah, you mentioned just a second before we move on. The Saints really rely on obviously Alvin Kamara and that deep ball with Shaheed. You can't. That's not a winning formula. Dumping off checkdowns to Kamara and chucking bombs to Shaheed. Like that's it's not. You need to be a little more nuanced as an offense to win games, especially against a complete defense like the Broncos have.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see enough from Rattler. Like the Saints got blown out of that game, and a few of their scores were really just from Baker getting sloppy. He threw for like 5 touchdown passes, but had like 3 picks also. So,
Yep,
I mean, he gave some easy ones to that Saints offense. I'm gonna need to see more from Rattler before I bet him even at home.
agreed.
Next up, we got our London matchup. Two 1-5 teams, but the Jags did get to stay in London for this extra week in between the Bears matchup, which I think is pretty indicative of that spread here. On the flip side, we did get Drake May's first career start with the Patriots, and all things considered, going up against that Houston squad, I thought he looked pretty good. 21 points they scored in that game, and that is the season high for the Patriots in Drake May's first career start. So I do think they're going to score more. He needs to cut down on the turnovers, but the Jags are -5.5 here in London. We did mention they'll get the extra week here, so kind of playing against a jet lag Patriots team. Do you think that's the difference, or do you think the Patriots can pull this one out?
I kind of think it is the difference. I agree with you. I think the spread is giving them a little favorability because of that. It certainly matters, but I was impressed and a little bit surprised by the Patriots' performance with, or I guess with Drake May and against that Texans team. I didn't expect them to let up as many points defensively as they did, even though the Texans have a lot of firepower without Nico Collins still. That was probably the most explosive I've seen the Texans this season against the Patriots defense that I thought to be a little bit better. So that was surprising. And that all leads to, the Patriots scoring more than I thought, letting up more points than I thought. I thought this total would have been in the 30s for sure, but I guess it's indicative of two teams with below average defenses. You still see the Jaguars with some firepower on offense too, and Trevor Lawrence is still a competent quarterback. He's proving it just every now and then making mistakes. I think you're going to see the Jaguars win this game. Is I think these are both one-win teams. I think the Jaguars are the better one-win team, especially as you get a rookie quarterback in his second career start. Throwing him out to London isn't the easiest situation to be thrown into. I think I like the Jaguars here. I also think I like the over in this game, given the poor defensive play and probably the aggressive nature of Drake May in this game. And the last thing I want to say before I hand it off to you is that I think the spread of 5.5 is too much. And if I had to pick a side here, I think it'd be in the Patriots, as you mentioned, scoring the most offensive points they've had all season long in Drake May's first start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on pretty much all the same points you are here. The Jags, while they're 1-5, I mean, Trevor Lawrence hasn't been that bad. I mean, he's playing a little bit worse than his career averages, but they're giving up the second most points per game in the entire NFL. So yeah, I like the over in this one. I think to your point, Drake May, he's thrown the ball, but could definitely throw some interceptions, maybe fumble here or there. Just leaning more towards points generally in those big type of chunk plays and maybe setting up that Jags offense. So I like the over. And I'm also on the Jags because they get to stay the extra week. I liked how May looked, but yeah, the Patriots defense looked a little bit shaky. And exactly, without Nico Collins, I thought they would fare a lot better in that matchup. So, I mean, I'm on the Jags minus 5.5. I think there's going to be some points scored in this one, but I do think they're going to also cover the spread.
Yeah, anytime I think I'm just classically conditioned to see the Patriots as a dog and like them, just given 20 years of Bill Belichick. But old habits die hard is something I probably got to move away from. But just two one-win teams.
I know,
I'm
right?
gonna stick
And
with
the
it just
Jags
because
dropped so
the
many
Patriots
passes
just do
yesterday.
weird things always. They have a solid enough defense. I like Mayo as the head coach and what he brings. I still think I think this game's gonna be closer, and I would have thought initially low scoring, but these defenses are both pretty poor. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens. It's about who makes more mistakes because Lawrence is, like you say, is not playing terrible football, but he's not playing up to his potential or really up to his historical average either. Drake May clearly the X factor in this game.
Yeah,
Goes
but I
without
mean,
saying.
another big reason why I'm going with the Jaguars.
Yeah.
Not the strongest receiving core over there in New England, so kind of forcing Drake May to do a little bit more than maybe he should have to. But next up, moving along, we got the 3-3 Seahawks, another team like the Saints who've kind of fallen apart after a hot start to the season. They're coming in at, I mean, if you look at the spread here, they're basically a 3-point field goal dogs to the Falcons going into Atlanta. Falcons are now 4-2. We've been all over them the last few weeks, and honestly, I know PFF is high on them too. I believe they're fifth, maybe overall in the PFF rankings. So this
Hmm.
Falcons team has looked really good after a semi-slow start to the season. They just beat the Panthers by 18. Seahawks do get a little bit of extra time playing on that last Thursday night against the Niners. So that's one thing to keep in mind heading into this game. But I mean, honestly, I don't have a super strong feeling on this one. I mean, I want to go with the Falcons. I just feel like the spread should be a little bit more than -3 at home, kind of indicating a neutral spread for this one. So I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I really like the Seahawks in this game for the main reason that I think they're an above average football team. I think they have the offensive output between guys. I love the backfield with Walker and Charbonnet kind of being a thunder lightning combo, especially Charbonnet as the receiving back. I love the receiving core with Metcalf as a deep threat. Lockett, he's aging, but still a solid slot receiver. And then Smith and Jigba really is their Swiss Army knife. Gino, when he can limit turnovers, which he struggled against the Niners. It's a pretty serviceable quarterback. Love the secondary there, and I think in a high scoring game like this, that's going to be the real difference. That secondary in Seattle, and the main point outside of all that, given that they have this above average talent, above average teams in the NFL don't lose 4 games in a row, whether on the road or at home. And again, the spread is implying neutral site, even matchup here. The Seahawks aren't going to lose 3 games, 4 games in a row. I'm sorry. They got up in the situation last Thursday when they faced off against the 49ers team that was really in a must-win game, coming in at 2-3. They weren't going to drop to 2-4. That just wasn't going to happen against a divisional opponent. I think the Seahawks, luckily, they get the extra time off, and I think that makes a big difference here. As we've seen a lot this year with a Thursday night going into the long Sunday seems to make a big difference. I like the talent here, and I like the fact that Seattle has one of, if not, I think the highest graded run. Seattle's the highest graded run defense in all of football, really getting dividends from their former first round pick, Charles Cross, the left tackle, and they're going up against a Falcons team that is in the bottom third in run defense. So all that combined, I like the Seahawks to win this game. And I know I think you hit the nail on the head where you would think a 4-2 team against a team that's slid as much as the Seahawks would be favored a little bit more by a field goal, if that, at home. And I think you're on the right track of like, hey, someone's not right in this line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still leaning the Falcons. I mean, you made a lot of good points there with Seattle, their run game, but that's the issue is they're not running the ball enough. They're first in the NFL in pass attempts per game. Some of that could be because they've been down in these recent matchups, but they're still three
No,
and
that's great
three.
to hear.
They need to run the ball more on that end. And then also keep in mind, Tariq Woolen is injured. I mean, he might play, might not, but yeah, it would be a big loss for them in the secondary. If anything, I mean, I'm leaning Falcons, but if anything, this one just feels too fishy for me. I am leaning Falcons, though. That's my pick if I have to make
Yeah, well, what do you think about this over? It's probably going to be one of the highest overs, if not the highest total of this game. You think it ends up hitting the over, or do you think with the two teams out, the Seahawks should want to run the football, and the Falcons do run the football a lot. Do you think that negates this high total?
I think it does. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this is just a matchup where you might lean towards the over, just given the personnel. But yeah, like you said, I think the Seahawks should really focus on running the ball this game. I know the Falcons have been out their linebacker Troy Anderson for the last couple of weeks, so I mean, yeah, I think you got to play a little bit to your advantages and kind of the same idea with the Seahawks. Depends if Tariq Woolen plays, but everybody talks about how tough that secondary is. You did say that a pretty solid run defense, or was that run offense for the Seahawks?
Seahawks had the number one graded run offense.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the Falcons. I mean they have the personnel to run the ball. So yeah, I mean I think this game could sneakily be an under.
Yeah.
Just how I'm leaning. Any extra thoughts on that, or ready to
No,
move on?
I think we covered that one and nauseam. It was a good one.
That sounds good. Moving on, we got the 1-4 Titans heading to Buffalo to play the 3-2 Bills. Titans did lose to the Colts by 3 in their last one, and the Bills are playing here on Monday night against the Jets. Bills, both these teams, I mean, let's be honest, they're both in a little bit of a skid. But surprisingly, I mean, we've talked about this Titans defense. It's always come down to Will Levis, but they've allowed the least yards to opponents on the season. Like this Titans defense is holding their own. But Levis has 7 picks through 5 games, and one of those games he played like a drive-in. So he's been horrible. I mean, he just has to hold on to the ball, or they essentially don't have a shot. And then on the flip side, I mean, the Bills look pretty good to start this Monday night game, but they are ranked 21st overall in PFF. Is there any world you see the Titans cover this one, or is it just too big of a talent disparity?
Cover, it's certainly possible. And that's really self-explanatory given that a cover is always 50-50 or basically 50-50. I don't think there's a way that the Bills lose this game, especially if they lose on Monday night, up 3 at halftime right now against the Jets. But regardless of the outcome, this is a Bills team that I think far exceeds the Titans in talent, especially offensively. Josh Allen playing great football all year long and really mistake-free football. I don't think he's got a pick yet. Knock on wood doesn't happen in the second half, but that's the real difference here. The turnover battle between these two teams. the Bills playing mistake-free football behind an MVP quarterback, and the Titans can be further from that truth. And quite honestly, I don't think I really need to add much more to this game. I would be shocked if there's an upset here. Titans on the road, given their quarterback play. Now, I don't think their defense, although a great stat that they're limiting teams to the least amount of yards per game, I don't think that's enough against the Bills, who are still going to put up a lot of points. And you don't in yards, you don't have to put up many yards and points to beat this Titans team. So hats off to their defense, and they got to be getting demoralized at this point, really doing their job, but the offense not really giving them any help.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like the Bills. I mean, it's hard to go with the Titans with the way Will Levis is playing.
Yeah.
Right, next up, we got an AFC North matchup. The now 2-4 Bengals slowly getting back into the hunt, and they're heading to Cleveland to play the 1-5 Browns. Bengals just beat the Giants by 10, and the Browns lost to the Eagles by 4. We should see Nick Chubb become activated this week. Definitely won't have a full workload, but at least getting some touches in that Cleveland backfield. But Deshaun Watson was still named the starting quarterback for this game, and you can see they're 4.5 point dogs against a team that's 2-4. Is there any way I mean, yes, like spread as you indicated already, it's always 50-50. And this defense is pretty good. I just I don't think Nick Chubb's enough for me in his first game back off of that kind of injury to lean with the Browns just the way that offense has looked. But do you have any extra thoughts outside of signing with the Bengals?
Is Nick Chubb for sure going to play? He's expected to play.
He's
Uh,
expected, yeah.
it's hard for me to say that the Browns win this game, given the way the Browns have looked, and especially because the Bengals are kind of in what the Bills were the second half of last season, where it's really survive in advance. You kind of need to win every single game at this point. Not for the rest of the season, but they can't really afford to lose anymore until they at least claw back to 3-4, if not 500. I think I like the Browns spread here, not because Nick Chubb, but really because of the performance and really body of work that I've seen from the Bengals this year. I thought being a 1-4 team going in against the Giants, they were going to blow them out. I thought you're going to see a vintage Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase game where they just light up the score sheet and are unstoppable. And you're not seeing it. Even though T. Higgins is playing well, Jamar Chase is playing pretty well, albeit a little bit inconsistently, and getting a lot of good production out of Chase Brown at running back. They're not putting up that much points, and their defense really isn't doing a ton. Now, they did enough to go against the Giants, but that isn't saying much. Again, I thought winless going one more week back against the Commanders that they were going to blow them out too, because again, must-win game at 0-4. And you saw the Commanders, who have a really good offense and one of the highest scoring offenses, compete with them all the way through. I hate to see a team going on the road against a divisional opponent as well, especially with a good defense like the Browns. I think the Bengals win this game by 3, but I like the Browns to cover this one. Chubb or
Yeah.
no Chubb, honestly, it's not about him at all. It's about the Bengals.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we did just see the Browns cover versus the Eagles. And yeah, I mean, they could definitely cover this one on a 3 point loss as well.
But
I mean,
hard to
I,
see the
I
Browns winning
have
this
to
game.
go with I have to go with the Bengals for the time being, just because how terrible Deshaun Watson has been a quarterback. But I mean, yeah, like Nick Chubb could get this offense going a little bit, and that'd be enough to still cover this one.
Yeah, it's the expectations for Chubb are going to be interesting because I don't think it's not really fair to him to have any expectations. That's why pick isn't predicated off him. But you never know. You see guys like Adrian Peterson get now. This is the greatest example of a comeback based in NFL history, but you see guys like Adrian Peterson come back from gruesome injuries just to be one of the most dominant specimen in the sport. So you never know. Chubb is definitely built different. We'll see how different he is built.
Yeah. I mean, and the Browns were amazing at home last year. Whole new
Yep.
season, but still one of the better home fields in the NFL.
That's just a Joe Flacco effect. That's all.
No, exactly. Next up, we got the 5-1 Texans going to play the 4-2 Packers in Lambeau. Got the Packers by about a field goal favorite here, teetering at that 2.5 3 point hook. But yeah, the Texans, they beat the Patriots handily last week, as they should. And same deal with the Packers against the Cardinals. That one was a little bit more impressive in a game I thought the Cardinals could stick around in. But the Packers got off to a hot start and really never let the Cardinals come back in that one. My point here, and you kind of hinted at it earlier in this video already. But I mean, the Texans did play the Patriots last week, so some of those like flaws or I don't know. My whole point basically is I think this Nico Collins injury is going to hurt them a little bit more, and we didn't see it last week because it didn't really matter. But when he was in, he was the NFL leading receiver. I mean, when you watched him play, he just looked different. He's a big athletic receiver. While Stephon Diggs is still a really good receiver, he's just not quite as much of the specimen as Nico Collins is. And I love Tank Dell. I have him on my fantasy team, but he hasn't been as electric this year. Like he got shot right this offseason, like Brian
Yeah.
Robinson
Yeah.
did. Like I
Yeah.
mean that's very tough to come back from, and it's just like swept under the rug in some sense.
Yeah,
But
no one really brings it up. Honestly, because he's not playing fantastic football because he's the third wide receiver on the Texans. But
right,
for a guy that's been shot, he's playing pretty great. Uh,
right.
but
I
I'm
just
with you.
yeah, I don't
No,
know.
I'm
I
making the
think
same
it's
point
gonna
you
hurt him
are.
here.
Yeah, I'm making the same point you. I just wanted to had to laugh at that. Uh, yeah, I'm more concerned about the amount of points that this Texans team was able to surrender against the Patriots. They got a lot of big names on that defense, and maybe they were just on all likelihood, they were probably looking past the Patriots a little bit towards this game. But if I was a Texans fan, I was upset with the amount of points surrendered to those guys. I think total in this game over, especially because of what I just saw with the Texans defense. But I love this Packers offense and what they're able to do. And because I like their offense so much, I'm picking the Packers to win this game because of the play calling and offensive personnel they have. I think they have the deepest and most talented wide receiver room in football, and that can probably only be rivaled by a healthy Texans locker room. But really, all things equal, I trust the play calling of Matt LaFleur over Bobby Slowick of the Texans. Matt LaFleur has been doing this for a while as a head coach and play caller for the Packers, and he only seems to be getting more lethal with this talent as they develop in Green Bay. Bobby Slowick, I think we've seen, and just CJ Stroud, this Texans offense has taken a step back from what it was last year. And I think people, if at all, are starting to figure out how to defend this defense and the schemes of Bobby Slowick a little bit more. You got to always be changing and adapting the NFL, and look to see him do that in the second half of this season. But right now, I haven't seen as much out of the Texans offense as you would have expected them to take a step up from last year. All those points being the reason why I'm on the Packers this week. It's really hard to stop their receivers, and especially when you're down Nico Collins, a little bit easier for Jair Alexander, the Packers, to limit Stephon Diggs, and now you're being carried by Tank Dell, who, as we know, was shot this offseason.
Yeah, good point, Woj. But no, I'm with you on the Packers here. I mean, the Texans are similar offense, but I mean, this Packers is the most complete offense in the NFL. They're, I believe, second in the NFL in rushing yards per game. And when I think about them, I'm really focused in on those receivers, three or not three, but like 4 or 5 deep. And then you mix it up with Josh Jacobs, and then you get Jaden Reed in the run game, Manuel Wilson. Like they're loaded across the board. And
Yeah.
at Lambeau, I think it'll be enough for them to beat the Texans in the
And now
shootout.
they're getting some real production out of the tight end position too. It's tough to stop this Packers team when they're clicking, and when Jordan Love doesn't turn the ball over. He had one pick last week, but if he can make that zero, this team is one of the most unstoppable teams, offense in the league, amongst really an unstoppable offense in all the whole NFC North is seemingly fitting of that bill.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, you like the over. I do too, especially with Jordan Love slinging it. Turnovers or not, points are being scored. Next matchup, a little bit less exciting here, and it's kind of a tough team to read with the Dolphins, but they're sitting at 2-3, and they're coming off the bye week. Not going to see Tua yet. They did mention we expect to see him at some point back in 2024, but not going to be this week. The Colts won on the road versus the Titans. But nonetheless, we are expecting Anthony Richardson back this week for Flacco. They're sitting at a 3.5 point favorite at home. I want to know which way you're leaning in this game.
Yeah, I want to hear your take because I feel like getting Anthony Richardson back could be a negative here. I think Joe Flacco's been playing good football. I was a little surprised to see the spread only at 3.5, but I think the Dolphins are coming off a bye, so that certainly helps them. Gets their quarterback, I'm assuming Tyler Huntley, this week, more acclimated to the offense. you can't take away with whoever's playing quarterback for the Dolphins the fact that they got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle at wide receivers, two of the most explosive and dynamic wide receivers, and just let alone speedy wide receivers in this NFL. So they can blow the top off of defense and keep this Dolphins team in any game, I think. The Colts with Anthony Richardson have that deep threat as well, but he can make all those deep throws, but also miss those 5 yard flat routes somehow. So I don't really know if Anthony Richardson back helps them or hurts us. It definitely gives them more variability and more explosiveness, but this is a game that I'm not really looking forward to watching. Maybe I'll be wrong. Um, but one I don't have a really good read on. I think it seems stupid, but I think I like the Dolphins plus 3.5 off the bye with as explosive playmakers as they do.
Yeah, I mean this one's hard for me too.
Really tough
A
game.
lot of variables. I mean the Dolphins have looked horrible, but they do have the bye, an extra week to get Huntley involved in that offense and just kind of build a playbook around him, just being so different than Tua. So yeah, I think the last week favors the Dolphins here. It's just hard for me to pick the Dolphins with how bad they've been. I mean, they're really a poor defensive team this year. And the Colts, I mean, they're still ranked at least middle of the pack, if not right above middle of the pack, offensive, defensively on PFF. So, I mean, the Colts are about as average of a football team as it gets right now. They're 3-3. Pretty sure their point differentials even on the season as well. So I think I like the Colts at home with Anthony Richardson coming back. I know it's a 3.5 on the hook, but when this Dolphins team can't get going on offense, they just fall apart so quick, and it's really tough football to watch. I know we could kind of get the same thing with Anthony Richardson, but I trust it a little bit more at home and just really the rest of the roster they have around.
Yeah, I don't think there's any right pick for this game. This is to me a real coin flip one, honestly. But you got to respect the run game of the Colts, and that might very well be the difference here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't feel great about it, but that's how I'm leaning. Really good matchup. We got the 4-1 Lions heading to the 5-0 Vikings NFC North matchup. Every team's above 500. Lions just manhandled the Cowboys this last weekend, and the Vikings are also off of a bye from their London game the previous week against the Jets. Detroit reclaimed the title as the highest scoring offense in the NFL as of last week. But then this Viking defense on their side has been unreal at both stopping the run and putting pressure on the quarterback. Two things that will absolutely be tough for the Lions here. I mean, they want to ground and pound behind that O line, and then I mean, Goff not being super mobile, he wants to rely on that O line, giving him some time, but not really moving around back there. So I mean, the Vikings defense, Brian Flores, I expect to give him some trouble here, but do think it's going to be enough for the Vikings to pull this one out at home. And a game that's almost even with the Vikings as slight favorites.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the Lions here to win this game, despite the fact that you're losing Aiden Hudson, who I think really was going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year if he played all 17, and despite the fact that the Vikings are coming off a bye and pretty fresh. This is tough. This game's at home for the Lions. They win this game. I wouldn't even be questioning it on the road in circumstance. It's even tougher, obviously, but I'm still going to pick the Lions because I do think they're the better team. I like their commitment to the run. I like their really incredible offensive line they put together over these last few years, and I think that's really the difference. I like the fact that they're going to see a lot of fourth downs that Dan Campbell goes for it this game. That always could shoot them in the foot, but I like the aggressive nature there. And very quietly this week, outside of becoming the highest scoring offense in a per game basis, they have achieved the #1 rank in PFF overall defense too. So you're seeing a really overall great Lions team with or without Aiden Hudson. Obviously, he helps the pass rush, but their coverage grade is really something too. No one that stands out specifically in their secondary that flies off the page, but as a unit, they're playing some of the best football that you could ask for. And that's given the fact that they're always in a situation where they got to protect against the pass because the Lions are putting up so many points. I think Aaron Jones, who's been great, is obviously a little bit lacking in the run game compared to the combination of Montgomery and Gibbs. I think the run game is the big difference here, and that's why I like the Lions. But don't sleep on the Minnesota Vikings defense. Is a #9 overall defense in the NFL and the second best run defense. But again, I think that offensive line for the Lions is still the relative advantage in this game against a really stout Vikings D line and run defense. But I want to hear what you say because I think you could have a lot of good takes in this game, and I think you can look at this game 1,000 different ways and have 1,000 different outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the Vikings mostly because of the bye week, but I mean, what I've seen so far to this point, they have a lot of big, impressive wins. I don't think they're going to be shocked by the moment at all against a good Detroit team. They've been battle
No.
tested already at this point. Also mentioned Detroit secondary is playing great, but nobody jumps off on the page to you. I mean, at the end of the day, somebody's got to guard Justin Jefferson, and if you don't have that lockdown corner, I really think Darnold is going to continue to keep force feeding Jefferson the ball and moving it downfield that way. And then on top of that, we might see TJ Hawkinson back in this one. I mean, another case where it's probably be some limited play, but I mean, the Lions were his old team, so I'm sure he wants to get out on the field for this one in a big matchup. But I mean, he's a top half wide tight end in the National Football League when healthy. So, I mean, throw him to the mix. Subtract out Aiden Hutchinson on the other side. I think the Lions are trending a little bit of a better direction, especially off the bye, or the Vikings, that is. But
Fair enough. I mean, no one loses in this outcome if you're a fan because this is going to be so fun to watch.
all right, next up, we got a few more games to go, and we're kind of dragging along here, so we got to speed it up just a little bit. But we got an NFC East matchup. 3-2 Eagles heading to play the 2-4 Giants. Malik Neighbors should finally be back from that concussion that we talked about earlier. But the Giants, I mean, they lost in a game where it looked like they were starting to turn the corner to the Bengals and kind of fell back to their previous form. Do you think this is a game they could pull out at home, or are the Eagles getting healthy and starting to turn things around as well?
I think it's a game that Giants can win this one at home. This Eagles defense is not a good unit, and the performance against the Browns is not indicative of their overall strength because the Browns can't do anything. So I really do think it's possible that the Giants win this game, and I almost want to lean that way. I definitely like +3.5 at home against a divisional opponent with a weak defense.
I agree. The only weird stat here, Daniel Jones, he does not have a touchdown pass this year at home or a touchdown in general home. To pair that with 4 interceptions, and then he's got 6 passing touchdowns on the road of 0 interception. So dude he does not like those home fans in New York.
Jeez, those New
But
York fans are living in his head.
but I agree. That's the way I'm leaning initially, and then just weird Daniel Jones me off right now. But next up, we got the 2-4 Raiders heading to LA to play the 1-4 Rams. Rams are coming off of a bye. Personally, I got to roll with McVay off the bye. They are -4.5, but this Raiders team just looks like they're falling apart in front of us. Devontae's basically sitting out. Crosby said he wants to be put in a package deal with them. Just feels like they're losing the locker room already over there in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I gotta ride with the Rams here off the bye with McVay going against the Raiders, who have the worst coverage defense in all of sports or in all of the NFL right now. Worth all sports. Worth noting though, the number two worst coverage defense in the league, the Rams. I would expect to see a lot of points this game too, over 43.5. But Rams should win this game handily.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think need a statement win, get back in the hunt. McVay wants to play for the playoffs, as any coach would. But we got the 1-5 Panthers heading to the 4-2 Commanders. Panthers off to the Falcons. At least they're scoring some points, but that defense just like awful over there in Carolina. Then the Commanders, I mean, they held their own against the Ravens, but kind of just a little bit too young, not enough weapons to pull that one out. Panthers worst rated defense on PFF, with the Commanders being the fourth worst rated defense. I mean, that's indicative of our high line here. I think that's spot on, but I don't have any real lean here. I mean, I think the Commanders win the game, but 7.5 might be too much for me.
Yeah, it's hard to really pick against this Commanders team because their offense is just so good. They could cover just about anything, it seems like. High total here. I think I'm gonna roll with the Commanders for the first time this season. Take them spread too.
I like it.
I
If
love
I
the
have
way
to
Jay
pick,
Daniels looks.
I'll side with you. I just don't think that Panthers defense can't stop anyone. How are they going to stop the Commanders? But one of our better matchups, Super Bowl rematch from last year. Got the Chiefs off of a bye week heading into this one, which changes some things here. But the Niners, 3-3. Yeah, I want to know what you're feeling. Straight from the hip here.
Chiefs off a bye, better quarterback. Taking, I mean, I know you get the long week with the Niners, but Chiefs are due for a loss. I just don't. You know what? The Chiefs should lose to the Niners. I don't give a what I even think. Chiefs should lose to the Niners just so they can get a loss and figure out how to, overcome adversity instead of keep winning every game. Especially if you see these guys again in the Super Bowl. I think it's hard for me not to pick the Chiefs this game, though, given the way they've looked. Their defense is what impressed me the most, and that's why I think they win this game.
Yeah, the fact that they're coming off a bye makes it tough because I really want to take the Niners.
Hmm.
Like, for example, Chiefs and the Vikings are both 5-0. The Vikings are plus 63 point differential, and the Chiefs are plus 33. So, I mean, they're winning some close ones. They're finding ways to win games, which you could argue and spin that however you want. But I feel like they're getting a little lucky and kind of need to take a loss here to clean some things up.
I take it back. The Niners win this game. Niners at 3-3. They're going to win this game.
Yeah, no, I'm
They
with
need
you.
hungry dog. They want it.
Yeah, they need a little bit
They
more.
do need it more. They're 3-3. That's not
Jets
poor
now,
management.
they're playing in this Monday night game against the Bills. And they're headed to the Steelers, who are now 4-0 for this Sunday night matchup. Jets continue to play in these primetime games. And I like to lean with the Jets in this game. Two pretty similar teams defensively, I would say, in a way, at least teams that lean on their defenses. But I got to go with Rodgers all day over Justin Fields. I haven't seen Justin Fields get it done enough against high level competition. So yeah, I'm going with the Jets in this one.
Totally with you. The Jets can only underperform, and Aaron Rodgers can only underperform for so long. Against this really tough defense, I can't imagine. You said everything. I can't imagine Justin Fields being Aaron Rodgers in this kind of showdown with two good defenses. And, just
Yeah,
comes down
yeah,
to
it comes down.
mistake-free Rodgers football, which we've seen for so much of his career.
Yeah, I don't see Najee or Jalen Warren being the big enough X factor to really
No,
push the
no, I
Steelers
don't.
out front. But we do have two Monday night games. Those are our last two here. We've got the 4-2 Ravens against the 4-2 Bucks. And Ravens, they look like they're on a mission after their starting 0-2. And the one thing I will say is I wouldn't decide with the Ravens here, but their lowest PFF score is their coverage grade. Their bottom third. I mean, I kind of love the Bucks at plus 4.5 at home. I mean, that's just kind of disrespectful in my mind. A team that made the playoffs last year. Ravens look like a juggernaut, but it's too much in my opinion.
Yeah, two 4-2 teams, and the Ravens, even in their wins, haven't impressed me enough to like them. 4.5 points on the road. I do think the Ravens should win this game, but I really won't be surprised at all if the Buccaneers do, given the way their offense have looked. I think the Ravens are starting to hit their stride offensively, but that defense has been lagging based on my expectations, and I expect to see a lot of points this game. And don't be surprised if the Bucks can pull this one off.
Yeah, I mean, Baker's gonna be able to throw the ball, so it'll be an offensive showdown. See who turns the ball over. But last game here, just over a minute, we got the Chargers sitting at 3-2. They're heading into Arizona to play the 2-4 Cardinals. This is also a Monday night matchup. And then just my one note here, when you have a quarterback like Herbert, he's attempting the least passes per game in the NFL. I know that's a Harbaugh-led offense, but
Mhm.
this offense hasn't been explosive enough for me from what I've seen. I kind of like the Cardinals to steal this one at home.
I do too. I'm glad you said it. I think more playmakers against a good Chargers defense here, in a low-ish scoring game. It's going to come down to explosive plays. Give me James Conner. Give me Kyler Murray. Give me Maserati Marv. I like the Cardinals to win this game outright.
Yeah, I mean the Chargers defense has been impressive, but
Mhm.
considering the minimal personnel changes, it seems like it's got to fall through eventually, Or
You would think. You never know.
I
But
mean,
I'm
yeah,
with you.
coordinators make that big of a difference. All right, any
It
any
does.
parting words, Woj, as we wrap it up?
I'm hoping for some more upsets this week. Make some NFL exciting again. Last week
Yeah,
was too bland.
it was a lot of chalk and a lot of blowouts.
A lot of
So
chalk.
yeah,